Hey.
Alright, so right off the bat, I'm just gonna let y'all know, if you came here for James Wiseman slander, then you are in the wrong place. This video will be more focused on Golden State slander, if anything, and mostly just because of the big mistake they made in drafting James Wiseman and everything else they've done since, because it's all just really confusing me. Just for a quick recap though, these past 2 seasons have not been kind at all to the Golden State Warriors. Going into the 2020 season, KD left in free agency to Brooklyn, Klay Thompson was already ruled out for the entire year, and it would just be a few weeks away from Steph Curry also getting a similar treatment. From then on, with Draymond being their prominent piece on that team, the Warriors just flat out sucked. There's no way of arguing around it. They were bad enough that they were able to get the number 2 seed though, which put them in a pretty good spot moving forward. And leading up to the draft, I think it's fair to say that there was a consensus top 3 amongst pretty much everyone who paid attention to the draft. It was Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball who were seen as that top tier prospects. And when the Timberwolves went and took Anthony Edwards, that left the Warriors with a choice between James Wiseman and LaMelo Ball, or a big and a guard. And even though Klay Thompson had already been ruled out for the entire 2021 season, they still had the core of Steph, Klay, and Dre, so they wanted to go with a center who could help them win now, but also act as a bridge and then eventually be their next franchise player once that Steph, Klay, Dre era was done in Golden State. And it was at this point where I really started to question what the Warriors were doing with the current state of their team by selecting Wiseman, just because I thought it was pretty, universally recognized that although Wiseman was a good prospect, he was more on the side that he's going to need a couple of years to develop and get acclimated to the league, because that's just usually a common thing for centers fresh out of college to go about. Anyway, fast forward to the end of the season, and I think it's safe to say that James Wiseman's rookie year wasn't quite as productive as some people might have hoped. In 39 games, Wiseman averaged 11 points, 6 rebounds, and a block in 21 minutes a night, while having a true shooting percentage of 55%. But I do feel like this is a scenario where some context is necessary. Because if you go back and remember his 1 season of college basketball that he played, he got 3 games in, then was suspended by the NCAA because his coach Penny Hardaway, quote unquote, gave money to his mother, and instead of serving the suspension, he just up and left Memphis and decided to train for the NBA draft instead. Then because of the pandemic altering the NBA schedule, there was no summer league, the preseason was only a handful of games, meaning that James Wiseman had very, very little time to even get any experience before getting into his rookie year. Then on top of that, during the actual season, practices were very hard to come by, not to mention Wiseman again only played 39 games, missed over half the season dealing with injuries, so just ultimately could not get into any rhythm at all on the court. But perhaps the weirdest storyline of all from his rookie year was the fact that the Golden State coaching staff and front office constantly flipped back and forth between backing the young center and then also alienating him in a sort of way. But back to today, and we pretty much get a report every other day at this point where the Warriors front office is trying to get a trade done where they can acquire another star to fit with the Steph, Klay, Dre core to try and go get one more championship with them. And the whole ordeal has been very interesting because the Warriors definitely have the assets to get a pretty good trade done. Not only do they have the 7th and 14th pick in this upcoming draft, which is supposed to be a pretty loaded one, but they also have Andrew Wiggins, who, you could say what you want about Andrew Wiggins as a player, but he's still a 26-year-old who can give you 20 points a night and ultimately has a contract that matches a lot of stars around the league, which makes trading a whole lot easier. The only piece they don't seem to be comfortable with parting with is James Wiseman, and while I understand, again, the potential is definitely still there for him even after a rough rookie season, I just don't understand why for the sake of the Warriors. And I say this because while scrolling through Twitter today, I saw a report, and again, with any offseason rumor, NBA rumor report, you have to be careful with it because most of the time they're false or just not entirely the truth, or it's something along those lines. But this specific report was centered around the Warriors and Pacers who were in trade talks based around Miles Turner for the 7th overall pick. And after seeing this, my immediate reaction was that if Miles Turner is truly on the table for the Golden State Warriors, then they should be doing as much as possible to try and get him onto the Golden State roster, because he'd be a pretty damn good fit for that team right now. He's not too expensive, he won't command a whole lot of shots, but he's able to space the floor and play some good defense for them, which is two things that would benefit their current core a whole lot. Not to mention, he'd be the first solid center that they've had on their team in the entire Curry dynasty era, so that's another big plus. But at the same time, I just get this feeling that this trade probably won't get done because of the Warriors' contradicting obsession with James Wiseman. Because I know if I'm the Indiana Pacers and I'm giving up Miles Turner to the Golden State Warriors, I at least need James Wiseman in return as a suitable replacement at center. And for some reason, the Warriors continue to say that they want to win now, they want to go chase another ring with the Steph, Clay, Dre trio, but then they have Wiseman that's holding them back for some reason. And say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, if I'm trying to win a championship in this next season, or even the year after, give me Miles Turner over a second-year James Wiseman 10 times out of 10. Again, that's not supposed to be slander towards James Wiseman, or even praise for Miles Turner. I've had battles with him in the past about what I think about him as a player. But if we're talking about current day NBA, I think that one's a no-brainer. And I get it, you know, there are specific times and places where franchises need to be focused, or at least keeping an eye on their future so that they don't mess it all up and put themselves into a really bad place, you know, 5 years down the line. But in the case of Golden State in the year 2021, Steph Curry just had an MVP candidate level season and dragged the Warriors all the way to the 9 seed, while Andrew Wiggins was the only other player on the team who could score the ball regularly. That core of Steph, Clay, and Dre that I keep on bringing up is only going to get older by the day, so if you want to go win a championship, I'd say you build for the now and just don't worry about the later as much. And before this video ends, I do want to go on a bit of a side tangent here, just because this has been an issue that has been bugging me ever since the Warriors drafted James Wiseman. And call it revisionist history all you want, but I do want to explore the alternate timeline where the Warriors decided to take LaMelo Ball instead of James Wiseman at that second overall pick. Because I have been on this bandwagon. You can go check Twitter for the receipts. I have been saying this for ever since the draft cycle was happening, that LaMelo should have been the pick at number 2. Now, in terms of what would have happened in the 2021 season for them had they taken LaMelo, I don't think a whole lot would have changed. I think they would have won a few more games, but ultimately probably would have just been a first round exit in the playoffs. You know, might have stolen a game or two in exciting fashion, but again, it wouldn't have been anything too different from what happened this year. But I think this upcoming season would have a whole lot more potential to it than what the Warriors currently have. First off, if they had LaMelo on the roster, I don't think they'd be pushing another trade for another all-star level player so hard, because I think LaMelo has already shown a high enough floor that he's just a solid enough player that you wouldn't have to worry about getting another all-star. You could just worry more about getting a better bench and supporting cast around the core guys. And speaking of the core guys, just take a moment and imagine a starting lineup, or just lineup in general, where you have LaMelo, the great playmaker that he already is, running the offense. You got Steph, you got Clay just running circles around the defense off ball, trying to get open and just create havoc. You got Draymond setting them screens and just doing whatever is possible to get them open. The only other thing you need at that point is just someone who can play defense and stretch the floor, and just for simplicity's sake, you could throw a Juan Toscano Anderson in there, and I legitimately think that could be one of the deadliest lineups in the NBA. And they wouldn't even be that bad defensively either. But no, unfortunately, I can only experience that really fun and enjoyable timeline when I'm in bed sleeping at night, because it's all just a dream. In reality, the Warriors are now stuck with James Wiseman, who again is a fine player, will need some time to grow and get acclimated and just fit into his NBA ready body. But in the current day, he is just so far from what this organization currently needs in order to go and get a ring. Now it just seems like the Warriors are trying to do whatever they can to fix this mistake. And it's just a really frustrating thing to watch from an outsider perspective, because again, the Warriors have been a dynasty in recent years. They've done such a good job of team building that it was just weird to see them have such a bad miss on a good opportunity. And if you've made it to this point in the video, then congratulations, you're a real one. Now, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about hitting the subscribe button. It should be somewhere in this general direction. Or if you're not sure yet, maybe check out another video, which should be in this general direction. Either way, thank you for watching.